morning.
Good morning.
Virginia Beattie, formerly Sister John
Louise.
Thanks for coming. I know you've been looking forward to this
Yes.
with great excitement, redefined excitement. But your story is important to us as a member of the congregation and to those who have encountered you during your lifetime. So just know you're sharing something that none of the rest of us can share is your life. So if we start at the beginning, you know, where you grew up, where you were born, your brothers and sisters, something about your parents, your schooling, and I'll butt in every once in a while.
Please do.
Say, oh, tell me more about that. So
Okay.
whatever you want to start with your beginnings.
I'd like to start with my parents,
Good.
John Henry Beattie, and my mother's name was Mary Louise Judge Beattie. And of course their influence on my life was enormous. I was child number 6, the youngest, and
Oh,
with a big gap between myself and my next sister, Barbara. Barbara was a tap dancer, and she skipped classes in grades in school. She was well known in town and just a marvelous figure for me. And I adored all my sisters. My sister
how many
Phil-
brothers and sisters did you have?
2 boys,
Two
two
boys.
at the top, Jack
Okay.
and Ray, and then Phyllis, Grace, Barbara, and me. And I always tell the story about learning how to pray by my bedside with my mother. And she'd say, "Hail Mary, full of grace." And I'd say, "Hail Mary, Phyllis, and Grace."
Oh,
Because, you know, that's
Yeah.
what it sounded like to me. In my childhood, my mother put a statue of the Blessed Mother up the stair level in the corner. And it was my favorite place to pray, and play, I guess, too. In very early childhood, I told Mary everything. Yeah, Barbara punched me. She wouldn't stay on my side of the bed, or she would, you know.
that
worse
struggle
things.
on the right side of the bed for all of us, right?
That was really the double bed, you know.
Uh-huh.
And their wonderful friends. Phyllis had a crowd of friends that came in, and 2 of them were musicians from the New England Conservatory of Music, but they played special songs that were in the 40s and 30s, and we had a wonderful time around the piano. My mother always wanted a musician in the family. I took piano for 12 years and never really sparkled in it. She did it by heart. She had no lessons and could sit down and you hum a thing and she could play it. Mm-hmm. She played the mandolin. We had all our fun was in that sunroom with the piano. And we did a lot of singing. And we sang in the car going to the beach. Hampton Beach in New Hampshire was a famous place for the Catholics in that area.
And you grew up in
Massachusetts, Waltham, Massachusetts.
Waltham, yeah.
7 miles from Boston.
Oh dear, I
And
remember
a very
Boston.
hilly place. Yes, I bet you do, with the marathon.
Right,
Good for
right,
you.
right,
And you
right.
finished the marathon, right?
Right.
How about that?
Back to Waltham.
Oh, back to Waltham. Okay. I had 2 aunts that lived in Waltham, and an Aunt Grace who lived in Belmont, and I was frequently there because she had Miles and Mary Lou were my cousins, and we played together in the same age level. My brother Jack was my godfather, and he was 17 years older than me.
Wow.
Yeah. And Phyllis was my godmother, and they took it very seriously, very seriously. I went to Mass with Jack a lot. And one day they had a Maryknoll priest talking about the children in China and how he had the Maryknoll magazine and would we sign up because it would help his mission. And my brother Jack said, "I'm putting your name on here." I was about 8. And it was thrilling to have a magazine come in my name at that age, you know.
Oh, cute.
And I thought
Cute.
Jack was the thing anyway. So that really influenced my vocation for later.
Oh,
I thought
okay.
I'd love to go to China and work with the little kids and have some.
Where did you go to school? In grade school and high
we
school?
had St. Mary's Parish was the really middle place for us all. We all got baptized and confirmed and communioned and married and funeral to there. That was our church. and it was it was in a circular form. We had the priest house, then we had the great big St. Mary's Church, where everybody went, I think. Grammar school, St. Joseph's, and then the Christian Brothers, and then the high school. The Christian Brothers taught the boys on that side, and the Notre Dame de Namur on the other side.
And that's who taught you?
12 years.
Notre Dame?
Notre Dame de
pardon me.
Namur. Yes.
Notre Dame.
And their mother house was right down on Newton Street in Waltham. And you might wonder how come I...
Yes, I'm wondering. That's another question.
I got into a Midwest outfit. And what happened was my parents were snowbirds. They came down to Florida in the winter. As long as I can remember, I was a little girl. I'd stay with Aunt Catherine. But what was I going to say there?
What was your dad's business?
He had the biggest market in New England. He and Bob Casey were partners in this. And he was the one that took care of going to Faneuil Hall at 5 o'clock in the morning and buying all the foodstuffs. And everybody knew him because he had such a big market. Later on, he became one of the executives at the Boston Wholesale Grocery Company. And,
So when he retired,
he
then...
was a businessman. He had his fingers in a lot of properties and other little stores and so on.
So then he and his wife, your mom,
And
went
Mom worked hard too.
Yeah.
She really did.
went to Florida in the wintertime.
Yes, they did. And that's how I met the Dominicans.
Where in Florida?
In Barry College. We went to church there because our St. Rose of Lima church wasn't being, well, it was in process.
Right.
But we had to go to Mass in the auditorium.
Oh,
So
okay.
I met the sisters then.
Right.
And it didn't take long before my mother and dad said, you know, you're going to be going to college. You can go to Emmanuel in Boston or you can go to Barry because we're going to be 6 months either place as we grow older. They knew that was coming on. So I thought, well, Barry has a pool. Barry has sisters who call me honey and smile at me. And that was very different from what I was used to. So I chose Barry.
And so you went to Barry.
I went to Barry for 1 year and then fell in love with everybody. Sister Mary Paul was our dorm mother. She sat at the desk at night and
She was a
signed us
musician?
in. No,
Who am I thinking of?
Denise Mainville was there.
Oh, okay.
And of course she was a lot of fun. She was marvelous. I had Sister Arnold for the separation between the states, states war, and it was a completely different version than what I got from Boston. Of course, you know, we had trouble there. What else? Oh, Sister Thomas Mary Walsh said, oh, when I said I think I have a vocation, she said to the Maryknoll sisters.
To the Maryknoll?
Yes, that's what I said to Thomas Mary. And she went into this business about, it was all one. We were all Dominicans together. And why don't you just join us? I said, okay. You know, it sounded good to me.
Isn't it?
So
Now, what attracted you to the Maryknolls? Or the Notre Dames?
Say that again?
You said you were thinking of going to the Maryknolls.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
attracted you to that order?
Oh, the Maryknoll magazine that I was
Oh, that's
reading.
right,
That
that's
was
right. Your
coming in
brother
the mail
Jack.
frequently.
That's right,
yeah.
that's right.
Your brother
Okay.
Jack, Godfather Jack.
So that's interesting. So you had the Notre Dames and you had Maryknoll and then you had the Adrians, and she gave the right answer.
Didn't she, though? Yeah, God bless her. I loved all of them. They were so nice to us girls, you know. And they gave me a roommate from Columbia, South Carolina, and we could not understand each other. I'm not kidding. It was that harsh. We could not. One day she woke up and she said to me, cut the light out, Jenna, I want to plait my hair. And I said, pardon me, but I don't understand a word you're saying. And it was, cut the light out, I want to braid my hair. But they said, plait my hair. So, you know, it was embarrassing. We couldn't even, but we started to spell to one another, and then we got used to each other, I guess.
Clever, creative,
Yeah.
okay.
But it was a wonderful year. And I entered the convent in that June. Didn't waste any more time.
And your sponsor was
Thomas Mary Walsh.
Okay.
Yes. And she's dead now.
So you entered in 1950?
1950, June 25th.
25th, okay.
A wonderful crowd.
Right.
We have a marvelous crowd. So I thank the good Lord for that.
How many
It's one
were
of
in
my
your
major things?
group when you entered?
I'm not too sure about that.
Well, it was a larger group.
Yeah, it
one
was
or
Sister
two.
Edmonds.
Right, right.
And,
So then from there you had the formation program. And
yes,
then,
the novitiate, and they gave me very important jobs, which I just failed publicly in, and I don't know why they kept giving me these things. But I will tell you one story. I was a sacristan. I didn't even know there was a Dominican Mass. I didn't know that there was a difference there, So I had everything to learn. And one day, somebody was in into the place where the priests get ready, and I had my big, long, because it must have been Easter because there were lilies there, big, long torch, and I heard this psst, so I turned my head, and my torch torched the lilies, and they went up, and they fell on the altar, and all the older ladies in chapel were gasping in horror. So those kind of things happened to me all the time, and I wasn't kicked off. I just didn't understand. I guess it just went on and on.
well, we always felt that they put the pretty ones were sacristans and took care of the altar. I'm not kidding. So all
Really?
the pretty ones. So that tells me, all right.
Well, Mother Gerald was not in love with my accent. Well, I couldn't understand a word she said, but she couldn't. She didn't like it. So I was in the Novena of the Sacred Heart. Well, you know how that goes. The whole thing is AR words. And I went back because she banged on her, come back, and everything stops, and you know how embarrassing that is. And I shuffled back to her, and she said, blah, 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 in Irish to me. I didn't understand it 3 times. And finally it was, what makes you talk like that? And it struck me so funny because I couldn't understand a word she said either. So those are the communication difficulties we had. But
Isn't that interesting? I mean, you speak
fun.
English, but there's a certain accent
yes.
because of where you're from.
One more story, if I may.
Yeah.
There was a sprinkler thing that I was supposed to, as hebdomadarian, sprinkle the congregation with. And they said, you go and get it blessed by Mother first. So I went over and I blessed her with the water. She was so surprised, dripping wet. So there were just an awful lot of those instances, and I was always afraid of being sent home for them. I heard, other stories about people being sent home, and I thought, oh my God, they'll never keep me. And I just kept doing these crazy things, and they kept me. So I thank God for that. And
so then you were sent out, after...
Yeah, St. Rose of Lima, right back to Miami Shores. Wonderful.
Uh-huh.
And the summers at Barry were great. I was home.
That's
I was
right.
Even staying in my own dorm. It was just wonderful. So I had 6 summers there, and it was hot, but it was good.
And where were you stationed? A couple of places. And now you've been in ministry in many significant places.
Yes.
As you look back, the various ministries that you had, are there a couple that were very significant in your life?
Yes. And I finally landed. I really jumped all over the place looking for what felt right. And the congregation gave me everything, every tool to get a good job and to be useful. And I tried again and again and again different things. And I ended up with loving the elderly. I love being with the older folks. Mm-hmm. And I got a job in Catholic Charities that allowed me to do just that.
And where was that?
That was in Dubuque, Iowa, after
Dubuque,
Aquinas.
right.
And I worked for Catholic Charities, and they were having a HUD building built, and they sent me out to not educate. What do I want to say? To meet the ladies that were going to live in there and the gentlemen.
Okay.
And interview them.
Nice.
And that was a fantastic job. I loved it.
Did they understand you?
Yeah.
Your accent has gotten a little more.
Yeah, they call me Jenny the Nun.
Oh, Jenny the Nun.
It sounds like somebody the Hun, but that's
Yeah.
okay. We got along fine. I loved
that's
it.
nice.
Stayed for many years after that. Mm-hmm. And then when the changes in the church came, oh my goodness.
How was that for you, the Vatican Council, and all the changes in the congregation and in the church?
Yeah, I
Oh
was
yeah,
too
you
dumb
of all
to-
people would be
I
delighted.
was delighted. I really was. And my sister lived in Miami at that time. I remember going over to her house and getting into her clothes, you know, trying to. And every person I brought with me fitted beautifully, and I couldn't fit in her clothes because she was too small for me. So I remember that being a blow. I didn't know what size I was anyway. I was probably a 13 or something. But all those changes, I was for them. I mean, it was really, I could see how great life is going to be. But it was also, you know, marching. I did a lot of that.
The social justice.
Yes.
Yeah, you were
Yes.
very involved in social justice.
I was. Yeah.
Where did that spark come from?
Oh, who knows? I really, I had, when Cletus was in my life, he too was very involved. So that was, but if he wasn't going, I took a plane and went. I marched
did?
in all the New York peace things.
Oh, you did?
I met Adrian Dominicans there, and they said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "The same thing you are."
Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was, yes, that was a big part of my life.
So who else has been very instrumental in who you are
I
at
have
this
a
time?
whole list.
Well, just
I
what one person or two that comes to
Oh
mind.
my gosh. In my lifetime, I would say Judy Leader and I had a very close association.
Okay.
And a sort of a, we didn't, what do I want to say? We did not speak of what we spoke of together to anyone else. Let's put it that way. I know there must be simpler
Respected
ways.
the...
Yeah, very much so. And I knew I could trust her. And we became close.
So that had to be a very significant loss for you.
It was.
She went so
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, many of the nuns. Janet Hudspeth was a dear friend. I loved the spiritual directors that I had that were sisters. And I will never forget one of them telling me, we all are fabulous and flawed. And that really spoke to my soul. Gee, I don't want to forget that. Fabulous and flawed.
You repeat that frequently.
I do.
So that's a
And
mantra.
Yes.
That's significant to who
that
you are.
won't go out of my brain or my soul. That's there. And I'm sorry I didn't get it earlier, but that's
Well,
okay.
we get
We
certain
get when we're
inspirations
ready.
when we most need them.
I think so.
Yeah. So as you look at other ministries that you've had, you were a teacher.
Yes,
Yeah.
And there are many stories there, of course, but I realized when the Vatican II came that I wanted to do something else. And it was hard to just jump in, you know. And you probably remember me jumping around. I was trying to find a thing that had my whole heart and soul. And I did. I found it at the Center for the Elderly downtown.
St. Rose, you mean in
Yes,
Detroit?
yes.
St. Rose Senior Community, yes.
Yeah. And I had the most wonderful person as the head of that, Sister Rose, IHM. She was just grand.
Oh, she was. I knew
Yeah.
her very well.
Yeah.
So interesting. So you were down there for many years?
Many years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your specific
Well,
duties?
That's, you know, it was left, she had a title for me.
Right.
But it was really left to me what I wanted to do. And what developed was the ladies weren't getting good vegetables, you know, in Detroit, and they wanted to go north. They wanted to go way up. And so I went to Sister Rose and said, you know, it's okay if I drive them way out of town to get their vegetables every week. And she said, Ginny, you don't even have to ask me. Anything that they want to do, you can do. I thought, all right.
Does she know what she's saying to who?
Oh, we went fishing in Canada. We met the boat with the fish on them and bought the, you know. They were just delightful company. You know how the black ladies are. They're my favorite people, black grandmothers.
I think she came here once, or somebody that was there
Really?
brought them to Weber. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
women,
I didn't know
yeah.
that. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
So it's all the way through, and I'm so glad to have had this, even though I complain about it. because it brought it back to me what I really wanted to do. I finally found it. Work with the elderly. And the addicts. I love the addicts. Oh, can I tell another story?
Yes, you can.
I'm running out of time.
No. We're fine.
There's a place on 7 Mile for heroin addicts who are outpatients, really. They haven't been hospitalized. We had hundreds of them. They were coming. So I had to get a test from the state to do that, to counsel with them. So I got that. I passed this test. And I went down in the waiting room with all black people, and me in my big red coat. And I gave in my resume at the, is that what you call them?
Right.
At the place, the window there that was locked, of course, everything's locked there. And shortly after that, a gentleman came into the room with a cigar in his mouth. He was the big boss, Dr. Wolf. And he had a pinstripe shirt and very curly hair, very Jewish New York accent. And he came right to me and said, "People of your persuasion are welcome here." So I was delighted with that. I knew I was in then, I had the job. And that was a delightful, I know it sounds sad, and it is, of course, but it was a delightful experience. And I loved going there and just loved the place and felt good. We had 23 of us counselors there.
Wow.
And we had big loads. But and to see people improve, even though methadone is just as addictive.
And how long were you there?
Less
And what was
dangerous.
it? And what was it that?
Oh, maybe 5-6 years.
Oh, that's great.
I
That's
spent
great.
some time there. Yeah.
And then it comes to a
Then
point.
I did outreach. Yeah, with alcoholics, and then I also did hospital locked units, but that started up at it's that Mayo Clinic when I was in pastoral care training, and they asked for somebody to be in the units that were locked, and there was a hesitancy. It's kind of scary.
But not you.
Well, I didn't think I was doing so well with the others. I thought, I'll give it a try. And I fell in love with them immediately. So just loved being here. And the people were so welcoming that they needed other people to come and help them. That's what they were asking for. So they treated me like a queen. It was wonderful. And I did the exercises with them and everything. Learned a lot from them. So that was a delightful. So I had inpatient and outpatient experiences. And
So it's interesting that your love of working with the elders has led you to the Dominican Lives Center,
Right.
where you are immersed.
right, exactly where I love.
And you
what I'm
love your
doing.
ministry here,
Yeah.
which basically
good.
is listening.
A lot of it. Yes.
And your gentle presence.
Well, I don't know how gentle, but presence anyway.
Right. All right. Now, what gives you at this time of your life? You know you're here, and what gives you energy and purpose? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Mass. It's delightful to have Mass just downstairs. Oh, it could be better. And the nuns are just so really adorable,
And you also like to walk.
Oh yes.
You're very
oh, yeah.
conscious of
that.
taking care of yourself.
Yes,
Right.
it's always been there, swimming and walking and going to the exercises and all that. And I'm glad now because I'm in pretty good health for 86.
Wonder.
Yeah,
86.
Thanks be to God. Yeah.
How blessed we are.
How blessed we are.
How blessed we are to have you. How would you like to be remembered?
I thought about that a little bit. With gratitude, I hope they realize the gratitude I have for the congregation, and of course for my parents. But I mean, as far as the religious life, we had a wonderful journey, and it's still wonderful.
Right,
In fact, this is
right.
the best part for me. It's I can't imagine why people don't want to come in. It's just heavenly. It should have been called the Gate of Heaven, I think.
Oh, cute.
'Cause
Well,
it's
that's
true.
good. As someone listens to your story, you could encourage them.
Oh, please, please know that it's wonderful here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, very good, Jenny.
So gratitude is a big
So
thing.
I am sure you'll be remembered in more ways than what you hope you'll be remembered.
I bet.
And I'm glad. And I'm glad that you said yes. You know, you did very willingly say yes to come to be interviewed at the time, because it was a long time away. So thank you, and you certainly have been a blessing to the congregation. And to think, you know, that you had other options. And Sister Mary Paul, is that her name? Yeah, Sister.
Yes.
Right. How good she was, and that's right. All the congregations are the same, so you might as well come here.
Oh, that was Thomas Mary.
Oh, Thomas Mary.
And
yeah.
I believed her, you know. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump in.
Yeah, well, she was inspired by the Spirit, so blessings to her. So thank you for your presence among us, and in particular here, because I know you're a gentle presence. I know you're a very good listener, and there's a kindness about you that just rather radiates.
Thank you.
And I think
goodness.
it's all the blessings that you've had in your life are very evident right now.
Well, thank you. It's
So
the
again,
best time of my life.
good. I say thank you.